Hi everyone, welcome to the Babbling Irons. Today we're going to be reviewing West Ham versus Bournemouth. This basically is a game which is pretty much going to be the battle for safety. So if we win this game, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If we win this game, I think we are safe. I think we're then on the road to being able to relax as fans and then being able to kind of see out the season in some relative ease. But we'll get into this in a moment. So yeah, guys, stay tuned and we will take a deeper dive into the upcoming game. It's off. We are coming into the final run-in of the season. How are you feeling about the next sequence of games after our recent form?
I think I was really happy with the draw against Arsenal. I think we both sort of maintained that they were there for the taking if we had perhaps made certain changes earlier in the match. But that said, it's a fantastic point. Southampton have also got that fantastic point under their belt now, which, you know, is something that we can kind of go, maybe we kind of set that rot in, but you never know. The result against Ghent, that will be something that we can again look to maybe build upon, and there's confidence there from that. So I think going into the remainder of the games, I'm pretty confident, but Bournemouth are a tricky side, and you know they've got one player and they've had him for the full season who I am a big fan of. I've been chastised for it for a long time.
Don't worry. I'll stop you there because we are going to talk about him, and I know exactly who you were on about. So I've deliberately put him in my mind so I can bring him up so you can have your moment to talk about. But I know exactly who you are.
But they have got a lot of pace, and you know they had a really busy January, which I'm sure we'll touch on as well. Yeah. And in my mind, they made some fantastic acquisitions. They made some really, really good purchases. And I mean, I think they're probably safe. I think it's fairly safe to say that as well. But I think they've got the pace to hurt us. And it's one of those games where if we lose, because it's at Bournemouth, I wouldn't be surprised. Again, it's a big game for them.
It's not necessarily a game we've done very well at in the past either. We've always seemed to have not really done. It's one of those tight, small pitches, and we've not always done so well there because it's a pitch that's quite good to hassle and harry teams, I think, if you're a home team. So
yeah,
it's not one we've always done too well, I think.
But I think it depends what West Ham show up. As we say so often on this show, it depends what West Ham show up. And I think if we go there, if we play like we did in that 6-minute spell against Ghent, then we'll come away with 3 points. But it will be one of those games, a bit like the Forest game today with Liverpool. You know, it will be a high-scoring game, and I'm going to set myself up for a fall, and it'll be 0-0 at the final whistle. But I think these are two sides that need to win, and if we can have our players producing and finishing to the degree that they can, players like Benrahma and Bowen, then I think we should get 3 points.
Yeah, and to that point, you know, let's look at the head-to-head in the Premier League this season. Obviously, it's not head-to-head between us and them. This is over the overall season. You know, they're a game ahead of us as well as a position. They have 2 more points, 1 more win, scored a couple more than us, but they have obviously got a much weaker defence when you look at the conceded. Obviously, we do also have to factor into that. They did lose, I think, 7-1 it was to Liverpool. So they've taken some real hidings this season. And when you look at their form, They've won their last two. Obviously, they've been pretty solid. Really, they either win or they lose. It seems to be in the recent block of five. Whereas with us, we're kind of a little bit inconsistent. Obviously, the game we lost was against Newcastle. That was an embarrassment in how we played and how Newcastle really kind of toyed with us. But by and large, our form has been a lot more solid since the turn of the year. Obviously, if we win this game, that puts us on 34 points. It will put us above Bournemouth with a game in hand. Granted, game in hand is Manchester City, but it will put us, at least 2 points ahead. Obviously, if we win that game, it also then creates a gap between us and the bottom of the table. So, with that in mind, do you look at this game as a must-win? It's like as the old kind of cliche, it's a relegation 6-pointer.
I think any other season, this is a 6-pointer. But everyone's beating everyone at the moment, and this is where we kind of we looked at those last 5 games. But they've beaten Liverpool, they've beaten Tottenham recently, and our result against Arsenal, a point against Arsenal, is a great point. But they beat Spurs and they beat them at their own ground. Yeah. So it's for them, they'll take a lot of confidence from that. I know obviously Spurs aren't a big club, but it's that sort of result for them is huge, and especially in the way that they did it, that will give them a lot of confidence. So we'll be playing against a Bournemouth side who are up for it. So while I say I would kind of say normally it's a 6-pointer, and on paper it is. I just think that even if we lose, then there's enough chance that people around below us are going to be dropping points. They're going to be beating each other, or we'll have enough to beat sides like Leicester, just enough, and beat those sides when it matters. That this game is kind of, it's massive, but it's one that I won't read too much into.
Yeah, so I personally feel this is a must-win, purely because our next game is Liverpool. We've got Palace after that, then it's Man City, and then it's Man United. Before then, we face AZ Alkmaar. So for me, it is a must-win because it does mean we can go into those games with the knowledge that we are in a very strong position in terms of against the other teams, because that will put us, if I double check the table, I believe it puts us, if we were to win, 6 points clear of Leicester, who are obviously just come out of the relegation zone in 17th. It'll put us, again, we're on 31, so we're 2 points clear of Leeds. That puts 5 ahead of Leeds. If you count goal difference, puts us 6 points ahead of Leeds, 7 above 17th and 18th, which is obviously Everton and Leicester. So for me, it plays a big thing because of those games that are coming up.
Yeah, I've probably worded it really poorly, but I think it's in my head. Everyone is beating everyone at the moment, so I kind of think like 1 or 2 games here and there aren't going to spell disaster for your season. But look,
also thinking as well, for like when you look at the AZ Alkmaar game, if we win this one, there's no real pressure on those games leading up to it. And obviously, after Alkmaar, we then have Leicester and Leeds coming up in almost the last couple of games of the season. So it then adds that added pressure off. So we've got Brentford in between Alkmaar, but then it's Leeds followed by Leicester as our last 2 games of the season. And ideally, we want to be in a position where we've already pretty much secured our safety. So I do think that this Bournemouth game, whilst many will argue it's not must win, I think in the context of what's coming up, and if we want to see maybe Moyes not sacrifice the Europa Conference, in that context for me, then it becomes a must win. But having said that, a draw is not a bad result. If we do lose, as you say, it's not the end of the world, but it does add added pressure. And if you look at, say, how Liverpool struggled today against Nottingham Forest, there's every chance that playing a long ball game, playing long throw-ins, playing crosses is a game where you can maybe nick a point. But we'll talk about Liverpool game when it comes to it. But I do feel that this game does have a very big level of importance on the basis of what is to come. And I think had Leicester or Leeds been a bit sooner in that sequence rather than being the last 2 games of the season, I don't think I would probably look at it as a must-win tomorrow. But because they're the last 2 games of the season and what's coming up, obviously Man City, Liverpool, Man United, it does feel like it's kind of now or never. We need to get a win now, because if we don't win this one, then the Palace one for me, then it is a must-win. Because again, it's that kind of process, and it's probably at the moment you'd argue Bournemouth maybe are the more winnable of the 2, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. I completely get your point as well as to where you come from with it. I just feel in the grand context, I think we kind of have to go for it a little bit and look.
I'm just trying not to get my hopes up too much, because I think if I do that, West Ham are always going to disappoint me. But it's one of those. We're the only side in the league where we could draw against Arsenal and then we feel shaky about a game against Bournemouth, and then if we do draw, or if we don't pick up 3 points or whatever, if we get tonked, I feel like we could go to Anfield and we could surprise them. It's that sort of, again, topsy-turvy league at the moment, and side that we are, where
we're at home, actually. We're not at Anfield as well. We are at home.
Yeah.
So
I kind of just, I don't know. I don't know with West Ham. It's what West Ham show up, and particularly this season.
And this is a slight digression from the game, but how do you think fans will react if Sullivan gives Moyes 2-year extension? If he keeps us up, gets us to the final, after what Moyes said about new contract plan next year. In all honesty, Moyes is going to say nothing other than I'm planning for next year. Let's take back to when he was sacked last time. He talks about I'm planning for next year. I plan to be here. He's not going to say anything other than that. He wants to put out to the world, I am the manager at West Ham. I at least have another year. I plan to be here. So if the ball then go another direction, he can always say, I never wanted to leave. I had a vision for the club. The board didn't want to give it to me. How about you, Mr. New Club? Give me the chance to create my vision that I never got a chance to do at West Ham. By the way, look how well I did at West Ham over the last 2 years. Let me bring my vision that I had for West Ham to you. Personally, I wouldn't read anything into his comments. I just think it's what any manager would do, regardless, will always say, I'm planning for next year, because all intents and purposes, he has a 1-year contract left after this season. He's going to say nothing other than I'm planning for next season. Why would he say, oh, yeah, I've got no plans for next year. I don't know if I'm going to be here. You're not going to... He wants to, at the moment, seem confident and to kind of say to the board, I'm your man. Even if he's probably, for all we know, he's already been told he's going. So, and this is now just I played a party line, I played a part, and I'm now going to tell everyone, I have a plan for West Ham. This is what I want to do. I want to go into next season with this. And then if it doesn't come to fruition, such as him staying, and again, Sullivan's got rid of him once before when the board have all been pushing for him to stay. There's no reason why he won't do it again. David Sullivan, I don't think, really has any real loyalty or allegiance to David Moyes. I know some would say, he will, because he'll do what he wants. He'll buy players from the Championship. I don't buy all that. I think there's a lot of crap put out sometimes to bash the board, and I do not like them, but I think some of it is over the top, and it's always reading between the lines, doing 2+2 and coming up with 6. So personally, I do think he's gone. I think conversations have all been had, but ultimately, the only way I see him staying is if there is no change in the boardroom and other managers in the summer decline the opportunity to work for West Ham. That's how I feel that it will play out. Otherwise, I don't necessarily see him next year. Even if we do win, I think it's a great way for them to send him off into the sunset. Thank him very much. And also for Mr. Sullivan, he can finally say, at a football club, he has been successful and won something, and he can swan off into the sunset as well, or go down to a massive minority shareholder. I think it works for everyone. If he keeps us up, wins something, the board can then, or the particular incumbent ownership or the custodians can sell their main shares, leave successful in their minds, and you be hard to argue they haven't been. And Moyes could also then be removed by a new ownership, new direction, and that could be the point. We want a new direction, new manager. We want someone that is going to impart our vision. So, yeah, personally, I wouldn't read into it. In all honesty, quite long-winded answer, but I just don't see it happening. If I'm completely honest.
No, I think the only reason, I think the only way that he stays is if he wins the Conference League. He has to win it, in my opinion, to stay and hold his head up high, because it's been such a disaster of a season in terms of the outlay and the support that he had during the summer, and the decision not, like, the board will be looking at it, even it like, look, I don't like David Sullivan, and I've said it many times. I think he's incompetent, and the mere idea that you can piss about with the future of a football club and potentially hundreds of millions of pounds as a businessman is just, it's completely baffling. It's really baffling. But then again, you know, we see it with a lot of business people, or rich kids, as a lot of them are these days. But the decision making that you wouldn't remove Moyes at the end of the season, I think is bad, because look, he had the chance to spend big money, because the owners clearly backed him in January. He chose against it, and it's on his head that we didn't beat Frankfurt. It's entirely on Moyes' head, because we had one fit striker. Now I'm going to go on I'm not going to go on too much of a rant, but it's slipping in towards that territory. It's entirely on Moyes' head. Just my opinion, that, you know, you cannot be telling managers you've got a war chest and a budget to spend in January, then say, no, I just want to keep one fit striker and a player who let you down previously in the Europa League with, you know, he's been poor and declining for a while, Cresswell, and not bring in a new left back. You cannot make those decisions and then not expect what you do in the summer to be scrutinized even further. And he was backed heavily in the summer. So for this season to pan out the way it has, even if he does win the Europa Conference League, I think from a business point of view, you probably have to say, look, it's been a wild ride. It's been an experience, but here's your pay. Here's your P45, essentially, at the end of the day. Come on. And there will be people who disagree with that. And look, it's amazing for us to be in the situation we are of competing for multiple seasons in a competition in Europe. I didn't think I'd be saying that. If you'd asked me that at 20 years old, you know, 10 years ago, I'd be saying, nah, come on, no, it's not happening. But we've gotten to that journey. It's not all entirely down to him, and it's that we've got that far. But
this one,
yeah, I mean, it's from a business point of view, I don't think there's a reason to keep him, because if you think about the money that could have come in had we got to the Europa League final and beaten Rangers, the Champions League money that would have come in for David Sullivan, that would have been incomprehensible. Like, that would be massive for him. So even getting Europe next year, he's going to want to push on from that,
Mhm.
even if he does take a step back. But the chance to have a club pushing towards that kind of slipped through his fingers. And I think it slipped through his fingers because he gave Moyes as much control as he did.
Yeah. I think
So,
just to explain this quickly, I think that the perfect way to sum it up is obviously if you're Moyes in, he doesn't go. He's done with the resources he's had prior to last year. He's done incredibly well. He's got back-to-back semi-finals with a very small squad. He's had a bigger squad, which has caused a transitional season. My absolute pet hate is that comment, but in the minds or in the statements for those in Moyes in, he's had a transitional season which he struggled to incorporate new players into the squad, and it's also caused ruptions in the team, and why we haven't performed very well. But that being said, he's potentially going to keep us up. He's potentially going to get us to a final and potentially win it, which is going to be the first time in over 20 odd years, which in many people's minds would make him at least a legend. I don't think I could say a legend, but an icon at the club. I can completely back in the sense of coming at a bad time, took us to a point where we've won a trophy. That has to be acknowledged. But I think when people talk about this transitional season, what I also think is completely ignores what's going to be coming in the summer. It's only looking at this year and this summer. Last summer what happened. It's not looking at what's coming this summer. This summer is at least 6 players out of contract, all first teamers, potentially losing our captain again for the second season in a row. And we're probably going to need to bring in at least 10 to 11 players, as well as getting the best out of the players that he bought this year. Now, if this season was transitional, what is next season? It can't be a transitional season again. You can't transition over 2 seasons. So if you couldn't manage it this year with such a high turnover, why do you expect him to do it next year? That is why my position is Moyes out, regardless of what happens. And then on top of that, the football this year has been so dire that, again, if you're looking to be a possession-based team, and this is what he's done, and only until now has he found a way to get results, that is not acceptable to go for another season for that long. You literally could only give him at least 5-10 games. But we'll end it there because obviously
I'm going to say one more thing.
I'll give you one last go.
I completely agree with what you're saying. And my nightmare is that we know how Moyes operates in the market. Mm-hmm. Lingard will come back on the market and we'll go for him again. And that is my own personal circle of hell that we are stuck in. And it's not disregarding what people have done, but we know how Moyes operates. He'll want to get that. He'll want to do that if he's free. And, you know, if anyone disagrees with me that they think he would do that, feel free. But I would be baffled because deep down, you'll know that he will do it. He will do it if he's a free agent, and that should worry you. If he's willing to bypass everything.
It's about what's happened this season. We didn't give 2 shits about what the fans think, because despite Lingard's claims of going for the love of a club, or a club giving him the love rather than paying a ton of wage every time he plays, regardless of whether our base salary was higher, he's getting a wedge to be at Nottingham Forest.
But that's the decision making, and that's the mindset as a club we need to move far away from. So I would suggest that we shake his hand, we say thank you and goodbye.
Yep. But anyway, right, we've digressed massively. We're about 20 minutes in, we've hardly spoken about the game. But yeah, it was a great question from Alison, and I think, me and Sloth obviously have some very strong views on it. I understand anyone who's Moyes in. I understand anyone who's Moyes out. I think you can actually, as a person, coexist on either side and both praise and criticize at the same time. It doesn't have to be as hard and fast as he's out, or he's in, he's in, he's in. There's areas of grey, and the fact that some don't want to operate in those areas of grey is quite amusing to me, because it just shows the mental gymnastics that you go through.
You're going to start singing Kumbaya.
I'll go get my guitar.
Get the guitar.
But anyway, we've digressed massively. Let's get back to the game. And one of the questions actually was, do we expect to see much of a change? My answer is no. I do not expect to be much of a change from the game on Thursday. I don't expect to see a change from the Arsenal game. I genuinely believe this is going to be our lineup. We all know Fabianski is number one in David Moyes' mind. I think Ogbonna may come in. I think that could be one of the changes. Ogbonna and Cresswell. We know he trusts Ogbonna a lot. Now, Kerr had a great game against Arsenal. Again, had a decent game against Ghent. I think the problem is he doesn't know at the moment what he wants on that left side. So I think that's up for question. Emerson, his lack of defending on Ghent's first goal, I think, pretty much rules him out for this game and gets Cresswell in. The midfield we know doesn't change in that front three currently, is not changing at all. However, I would quite like to see Cornet in ahead of Ben Rama, and I'll explain why when we actually kind of get into the main meat of the game. When we look at Bournemouth, they've kind of played, the 4-2-3-1 formation most of the season. They've occasionally dropped into a back three, and they've also played a 4-4-2 every now and then. I do think this will be their formation. Ouattara, fantastic signing in the summer, in January. Player that me and Sloth were very much screaming for us to go and buy. I think he would have helped us shoot up the league a lot quicker than what we had we got him. This conversation we'll have maybe in a bit. But there is. I think that's when they'll go. Obviously, they're not playing as Zamora, the left back anymore because of refusing to sign a contract. Hence Kelly moving from the inside to the outside. Senesi probably is the only questionable one between him and Mapham, but otherwise, I think this is probably the team we'll see when we play Bournemouth. And Sloth, I'm going to give you your time now to talk about one of the main dangers of Bournemouth, and it's that man, Philip Billing.
Yeah, I mean, Premier League fans will have opinions on him regardless. I think he's very much a litmus test in terms of how people watch football or take in performances from players, because, he's not always got the best body language, which is scary when you think he's a 6'4" unit or whatever. Like, there's a lot of body there to analyze, but he covers a lot of ground. He gets himself stuck in. He might get himself sent off every so often. But how many West Ham fans love seeing a player like that because they'll get stuck in?
Yeah.
He makes himself an absolute nuisance, but he's also got technical ability. And the key aspect for me is when you're comparing players, and we know that Moyes loves a blunt instrument. We know that he loves that wrecking ball approach. He's having the season that Souček was having when he joined. He's been fantastic for Bournemouth this year. And people keep saying about relegations on your CV, but, Mark Noble had relegations on his CV, and people seem to think, that he's a top footballer or a great West Ham player. And in many ways he was, but, that's not a case of being on the pitch. You can have a relegation on your CV and you can still be a top player. But what he really poses a risk with is his mixture of physicality and technical ability. Mm-hmm. It's something that is becoming a lot more common in football, these big, tall players who have that technical ability. But the way he covers ground and the ability that he does have to link up play, whether it's with his feet, whether it's with his head, or just to kind of win that second ball, is really what's impressed me this season, and it's why he's kind of got the figures that he has this season. So he's going to be the danger man for me. I think Souček is going to basically be told, you stick to him and defend everything he does. So
I agree. That's what I would do with Souček. I would be telling him to stand on Billing. I think he's better aerially than Billing, but Billing is very good with the ball at his feet. I've often been quite critical of Billing and not really fancied him much as a player. But I will concede this season he's really come on. 7 goals in the Premier League as well. If you even care about XG, he is overperforming on that as well. I think he should technically, by XG standards, be only on about 4 or 5 goals.
Yeah, so, but
he's overperforming in that regard.
I
But
think,
he's been in good positions. That's the thing.
yeah,
So good positions. He's having quality shots, and his conversion rate, I think, is around about almost is 20+% from shots on goal, which is a very good stat and something that not many players are kind of at that kind of level, especially from midfield.
I think a lot of that stat sort of hides as well just how poor Bournemouth were under Parker.
Yeah.
And you know, if there's one thing that really deserves a lot of praise, is the way Gary O'Neill's really got a tune out of them.
Yep.
And yeah, he's been backed, as we mentioned, very heavily in the transfer market, but it's paying dividends. And a player like Billing has really stepped up to the plate, but he did it while Parker was there. And he was very much dragging this Bournemouth side forward. So I do think that he deserves a lot of recognition this year. Do I think he's going to get a move to a big club? Probably not. No. He'll probably end up with another relegation on his CV when Bournemouth struggle next year. But I think he's really shown a level to his game that last season people were telling you didn't exist. So I think he's
a player that if West Ham look to move Souček on, I think you would be silly not to look at someone like Billing, because it's stature. He's got the same kind of stature, but he's far better technically. He does just as much, if not more, from a defensive standpoint, and it's just as good from a defensive standpoint. He's definitely developed in recent seasons that knack of getting into the area at the right times, very much like Souček. He's also seen himself score 7 goals. He's been able to play essentially as a number 10 for a majority of this season as well. So to have that kind of player who, should we say, get a top quality number 6, because we're probably going to lose that. Someone like that, if they came in to replace Souček, say in the summer, if we went that route, it would be an increase and an improvement on what we currently have. And I think we're right to pick up Billing as a danger man, because again, 7 goals this season in the Premier League. It is an impressive statistic when you consider, I think our top goal scorer in the Premier League is Ben Rama at 4 or 5 goals. Fair enough, we have some of our goals spread around, but we've only scored 29 goals throughout the whole entire season. Bournemouth, not much more. But it's definitely a player we need to watch. And as you say, I think the way Souček plays at the moment and where he is in possession, I think in a tighter pitch, allowing Declan Rice and Paqueta to have that role in which to control possession and to kind of go 1v1 against Lerma, and I think it's probably Rothwell, I think is the other player in their midfield typically, is probably the best thing to do. So you would say that Rice and Paqueta would have the better of those two. Billing in itself is going to be a difficult player to manage. So looking to man mark him, if we can take him out of the game, I think we will remove a fair level of Bournemouth's threat, I guess, centrally. But let's not discount the fact that whilst he's never set the world alight, Solanke is a big, strong, athletic centre forward who has good pace, has shown that a lot this year. Obviously, Ouattara on the left-hand side, again, incredible pace and technical ability. And then on the right-hand side, whilst he's not necessarily, you'd say, a world beater at a Premier League level, Christie, again, is another player with good skill, good pace. So it's something, if we take one player out, we've got to be aware that they are going to have additional weapons. They aren't scared to have that physical battle and to play for those seconds, to hit it long, play that kind of what people say unfashionable, messy football. But really, it's just, well, no, you just play into your strengths. If you've got big, physical, strong players, then any kind of flicks or knock-ons, having players with pace can make things happen out of a scrappy game. So use that. And if you've got a physical centre forward, then obviously you're going to use that physical unit time and again to kind of to go against you. So when you look at, besides Billing, is there anywhere else where you think, we need to be aware of Bournemouth and how we, and if so, how would you probably look to try and counter it? Because obviously, as you say, with Billing, you'd look to maybe utilise Souček a lot more.
Well, I mean, someone like Uatara on the wing, potentially running at someone like Cresswell, scares me senseless. Like, I've
I
been
think
so
Bournemouth
impressed with
playing
him.
on the left-hand side, so would likely be against Soufal more
Yeah,
than
but I mean, they are very easy to kind of switch sides, and
yeah.
One of the things that Bournemouth, particularly against Spurs, showed is that they they will catch you on the break, but they will also um, they'll run past you. It doesn't matter if they've tried to beat you 2 or 3 times previously and they've failed. Uatara will run at you every single chance he gets, and that, I mean, Soufal has really dealt with that well in recent weeks.
To be fair to Cresswell, we do obviously go at him quite a bit. He did manage Saka incredibly well last week after I guess, the early 10 minutes where we were all, I think the whole team was a bit defensively caught out. He did then manage Saka incredibly well.
Yeah, I think, again, when you're talking about a defensive performance, if you concede 2 goals sloppily like that, it does really have to be scrutinised. But if he performs like he did in that second half, I think we'll do well. But again, it's a case of what West Ham show up.
Yeah,
and I do think Uatara is going to be, he's going to have his tail up. He's already got a league goal for them. He got an assist in his first game, which was a fantastic ball in. But he provides that threat. He provides delivery. He provides pace and skill on the ball to beat a man. And if we have Cresswell and Ogbonna in a back four, I do think you're playing with fire there, because as we've said, Bournemouth do have pace, and it doesn't matter if they, Solanke's not the quickest forward, but he will more than give Ogbonna a physical battle. And if he's got someone like Uatara running off him, then that's alarm bells ringing for the West Ham defence.
Yeah, and I can see Uatara's playing more on the left because they'll play Kelly at left back, who's not a natural fullback. He can play there. He did do that at Bristol City, and he did do it for kind of times for Bournemouth as well. And it's that formation that allows them to go a bit, asymmetric kind of thing, in that their left back will stay, their left winger will push up, their right winger will be there or thereabouts, and they'll attack down the right hand side with double teams. We're not really going to see overloads come on that left hand side unless bidding comes out. So a majority of the attacks down that left is going to be 1v1s for Soufal to deal with. Is what we've seen obviously in most games, because again, Kelly's not natural in looking to those overlaps and kind of getting forward, and that right hand side they're going to be constantly going. I think that's when you look at the goals conceded for Bournemouth, a majority of those do come from a ball over the back, especially in that right-hand side. And I do think that's something that we've really got to look to attack. We've really got to look to attack their right-hand side, because Smith does seem to go to sleep quite consistently. And we've got to get players in the box, because there's one thing that Bournemouth do, which is something that we've commented about what we do quite often, is that they defend zonally, and they kind of are more interested in marking their position and marking their space than actually looking for the danger and marking the player. And if you go over the last few games, in particular the last 5, a lot of the goals have come from just little cutbacks, not even smart cutbacks, just a cutback. And Bournemouth defenders are looking often at the ball. The Brighton game was a prime example. The goal in the last minute, players were just watching, centre forward just drops off the defender. The defender's looking at the ball, and it's just a nice little back heel. One of the other goals was just played constantly on the edge of the area, just diagonal ball played into the feet of a striker standing between 2 centre-backs. And standing between 2 centre-backs, completely free. This is something that, reason why Bournemouth concede so many goals, their team and the players, they do switch off. And if we look at the last 5 games, they've conceded on average 1.6 goals per 90 minutes in the last 5 games. That's quite a shocking statistic. Compared to us, over the last 5 games, we've conceded only 3 goals, so that's 0.6. So when you look at the difference in that, if we go on those averages, we may concede one based on the averages of that, whereas Bournemouth in itself will likely and potentially can concede two, because it's just how porous they can be defensively. Now, on the other hand, we've only got 5 goals in 5 games. They've got 6 goals in 5 games, which works out like 1.2 or whatever. But essentially, they are pretty free-flowing going forward. So we do have to be aware, as you said, in transition, they're going to be a nightmare to deal with. They are going to have that pace to go against us. But if we can do our job defensively, and I think it's going to have a heavy burden on the likes of Paqueta and Rice to help us manage that. But if we can do that and get it to the front players, I think we can cause them trouble. And I think it's probably one of those games. And again, we're not going to see it because we know we won't see it. But it will be a game where Cornet, if put into that left-hand side against Smith, could cause Bournemouth problems because his pace is frightening at times. In that position where Smith has consistently struggled with balls over the top, round the corner, with a pacey player going down there. Song at times tore him apart in the last game. Both the right wing back, which I think would have been Smith, and then the right centre back struggled with Song, and in other games as well. Bournemouth, Mitoma, again, Mitoma's not as quick as Cornet, but Mitoma has good movement, and again, he just struggled. He couldn't deal with the movement in and around him, couldn't deal with the pace. And if we have someone like Cornet, who, unlike Ben Rama, is more interested in going in behind than maybe dropping deep, it's something that's going to cause them problems. And I think it's something that we haven't probably seen enough of this season because we don't have players going in behind. Their defence finds it quite easy to step up, and it's a small pitch. We need to make them drop 1 to 10 yards, preferably back, because they're concerned with, say, the pace of a Cornet running in behind. And it seems like a great time to maybe utilise him rather than it being a sub. But again, I just look at it and go, I don't see it happening because he will go for Ben Rama. And I think that is kind of the problem. And sometimes we don't identify a team and their weakness and then go, well, which one of my players can actually exploit that, as opposed to, this is my team, I'm going to teach this team to navigate around them, as opposed to, I'm going to pick players specifically to target weaknesses. And Cornet could be a player that really could hit a weakness for them. We both said about his form, but I don't know.
I just kind of hope that the Genk game and the chance he missed, but also the time he got, are just a bit, they're not going to knock him back too much, but it's also a sign that he's pushing for him to get fit. As that comment says, he didn't look fully fit the other night. But I think as I've said many times, the only way you get players match fit and you get them up to the level where they finish with confidence is by giving them game time. Now, you could start him and hook him after 50 minutes. It doesn't matter, but you've started a player and you have gone with that pacey attack and approach. We know Cornet can play every position on that left side. We know he's done it before. So I don't really see the risk in starting him. I don't think it will happen, but I do think it's important for Moyes to actually utilise his pace in that position, as you say, because we know Cornet scores goals. We know he has so much in his locker, and as we said, the pace is there to pick apart pretty much any defender.
Yeah. He's probably a player that I think at the moment he just needs that goal. Once he gets that goal, he'll be the player that many of us saw against Burnley. Obviously, could be quite wasteful, but a player that was incredibly dangerous, and you had to drop, 5-10 yards deeper because the pace in behind was such a point of, if your ball came over, he's constantly going to be looking to go, and if you're not in a position to essentially cover that ground or cover that space, you are going to be in trouble. And obviously, if we've got Antonio's got good pace as well. Bowen, he's one of those players who baffles me because sometimes he can actually have a lot of pace and other times it just looks fairly pedestrian. But again, when I look at it, I just kind of think, whilst Ben Rama's done well in games, he hasn't necessarily been setting the world alight as he had when we were all as a team struggling. And as you say, if you want players to get fit, you want match fitness, then bringing them on or starting them in games is certainly something. I think maybe giving Cornet a start is going to help him more than bringing him on from the bench. I think he's one of those players who probably benefits more from starting than coming in as an impact player.
It's the perfect time to do it as well, because you can say to Ben Rama, look, I'm keeping you for the Liverpool game because you're going to start. Like, you're going to be my man in Europe as well. And Cornet's going to get his chance today to show his fitness, but you'll be coming off the bench. You'll get minutes regardless.
And that's a valid point as well.
Time to do it.
We've got this game on Sunday. We've got Liverpool on Wednesday, and then on Saturday it's Crystal Palace again. So within the space of a week, we've got 3 games. So we need to have a level of rotation, and maybe someone like him bringing on Lanzini sometimes even has done quite well in the past against Bournemouth. It's maybe looking at 1 or 2 of these players and going, now's your time to go and shine. I need to lean on you. I think we'll play the team we pretty much put up because that's the way it is. But if he is going to, if he is going to go for that, I would like to think that he's going to make earlier substitutions to bring on the likes of Cornet maybe after, about 55 minutes, 60 minutes, and give him a really good run out rather than, and as much as I love Fornals, look at someone like Cornet and say, I want you to go on. I'm not going to bring on Fornals, or if he brings on Fornals, he brings him on as a centre midfielder to maybe help us out in possession. Those, it's those kind of changes rather than I'm taking off the left side, I'm bringing on the left side. And similar player, Fornals as a left winger is very similar to Benrahma, really. And you'd rather like to see that we've identified that their right side is probably their weak point defensively and hasn't really done as well against pace. And to put someone in like Cornet surely is going to be the answer. Someone like Danny Ings is probably chomping at the bit to play this game. Bearing in mind he used to play for Bournemouth, he's probably chomping at the bit to go back there and prove he's developed as a player, he's better as a player, and get a goal there as well. So I do think we need to be challenging the squad players a bit more because we are going to need them over not only the course of this week, but the end of the season, because we've got so many games still to come with potentially 3 more games in Europe, and we need to ensure we keep them players fresh and fit in the run-up to that.
Yeah, completely agree.
And I think this is a very fair point. I would hate to have 60 minutes of just chasing after Cornet. I can't imagine that being much fun. And then, to say have Benrahma come on, who's then going to be trying to send me for a hot dog every couple of minutes when he gets the ball as well. You could be running with jelly legs by 50, 60 minutes and then having to then deal with a tricky player who likes to kind of turn you one way than the other. So whilst I'd love to see it, it's just I don't think we have the manager who's going to change. I think now it's double down time. The team's starting to get results and it's double down time, whereas we see other managers, such as even Guardiola, that even when his team's winning, he will change up his team. Yeah. Whereas we tend to just stick to it. And I think that's probably one of the things that has seen us sometimes struggle in games because we haven't necessarily put in players that can actually exploit a weakness in the opposition or even just rotate just for the freshness of players.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that when we are coming towards this final end of the season, why are you even risking not giving players time on the pitch and that confidence of a goal when, as I said, look, it is a 6-pointer in the fact that they are the team above us, but it's been such a topsy-turvy season for every single side that we could well beat Liverpool, and but it just doesn't make sense to me that you wouldn't give your squad a bit more of a chance and a bit more legs, particularly given the fact that not doing so the season before is exactly what got you knocked out of Europe.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a couple of comments off, and I want to get your opinion on this, but I kind of agree with this, but do you think that because we don't necessarily at times target weaknesses, we're more concerned with how they will play against us, maybe than how we can play against them and target their frailties or their, as we say, the weaknesses? Do you think that then does make us too predictable because we don't make changes? So a team can almost go into the game, like we say, that midfield is set. It's not changing. The attack is not changing. That is easy for teams just to go, right, this is how we're going to prepare against Ben Rama. This is how we're preparing against Bowen. This is how we're preparing against Antonio and so on. Do you think that we are, because of, I guess, the consistency of selection, which isn't always a bad thing, does make us too predictable for the opposition?
100%. I think that there's never been a point in time where we've gone, oh, I didn't see that change coming, and that really changed the game.
I think Carroll was probably the only surprise recently, and that was against Arsenal again. And that's the centre back.
But then people slate him and go, oh, you can't have it both ways. And the fact that he was culpable or does make so many mistakes, you can't then go, oh, that was a masterstroke playing him, because you've criticised him every other game of the season. So I do think that one of the issues we have is we are far too predictable. You could easily drop Souček into a back five and play him as a centre back. We've never seen him try that. You could do lots of
best out of Souček, to be honest. The limitation in his passing is then almost eradicated.
Look, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm football manager of the year or anything like that, but I do think that when you're talking about decisions that change games, Moyes is very low on the list of managers in the league who do that. And his mentality of, this is how we play, you have to deal with it, I'm not going to have any surprises, is so outdated. And it's kind of it's so stubborn that, look, if you're playing rock and roll football and you've got a budget behind you and your mentality is it's pressing and constant, then yeah, I can, Liverpool aren't having a great season. They're having a crap season by their standards, but they're at least enjoyable to watch and they're getting in European competitions. And, this year, whether they make that or not it's kind of up to them as a squad, but they're not predictable to play against. It's just an ideology they have, and I feel like we don't have an ideology other than just kind of, this is how we play. You're going to have to deal with the physical edge we have, and we have got a big man running the channels who is quite quick, and we sometimes break with pace. It's not a case of there's tactical unpredictability. It's very rigid and set in its ways. So yeah, I do think it makes us easier to play against four sides.
Yeah. And I think Alisson makes a pretty good point. And do you when you look at this game and you look at obviously Moyes, do you think he looks at this rather as a must not lose as opposed to a game to go and win? It's always, we must not lose the game first, rather than let's go and attack the game to win it.
I think you can say that he views at least 12 games a season in the games against the top six that way. He doesn't try and win those games. And look, you can point to the home game against Liverpool, but we won that because we had great set pieces and we knew that Liverpool struggled with set pieces. We didn't win that because...
And to be fair, we also we countered them brilliantly down that right side. We for once targeted a player, and we targeted Trent Alexander-Arnold. But
it wasn't a big master stroke in terms of, we've never played that way before. We just played our game that was working well for us, and we won that day. So that I'd say there's at least 12 games a season where he just goes out to try not to lose. And I'm hoping he doesn't go out with that mentality tomorrow, but honestly, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'd like to think that after what he said about the Arsenal game, about being positive and looking to go for the game. Now, we did say that we felt he made decisions that showed that he maybe then, I don't want to say lack the bottle. I think that's unfair, but I think he lacks that killer instinct, or lacks that at times that ability to identify at the point where he needs to make a change, because he looks at, we're on the front foot, we're playing very well, we're in control, we are making chances, but that's then where it stops, because it's then, but that's what this team is doing, so I'm not going to disrupt that, rather than going, but if I add now a fresh pair of legs to this dynamic and to this level of pressure, that could be the difference. That extra 10% in one of my players could take us over the line. I think that's sometimes where he's failed. And yeah, I think, this is, again, I kind of agree in this, which is why with the likes of Fonseca, it's not necessarily a first choice, but it's a very decent option. His performances are orientated around attack-minded. They attack from a defensive point of view as well. Isn't just respect the point weak. And in fact, Fonseca's actually said he doesn't want to he wants to win games, but he doesn't want to win games without playing well. And I think that is different to what we currently have. We have a pragmatic manager who the end justifies the means. If you get a result, the performance is a secondary thing. It's something that you can bemoan and go, well, we should have done better in here and here, but we got the result. Let's look at the Fulham game, prime example. We were terrible. I know some people think we played well and it was tactically great. I think we were tactically very good in our final third. Other than that, I think we were pretty woeful. We won that game via a lucky own goal, really. We forced the own goal, but again, own goals are always a bit of luck. And yeah, he turned that round as a brilliant away performance. I wouldn't go as far as to say that. So again, I think we do have a manager who, it's not that he necessarily goes, I'm setting up not to win. Sorry, I don't think he goes into games thinking that he's not setting up to win games, or he's setting up specifically not to lose. But I just think in his mind, it's, I'm going to put a set of tactics that I think gives us the best way of shutting out the opposition and giving us a chance to nick it. And I say nick it because at times that is his own words. He likes to nick a goal, nick a point. And that's kind of where he is. And I think with the Bournemouth game, we can't be looking to nick a goal or nick a point. And I think you need to look at the collective that we have, look at the likes of Cornet and say, well, we need to use your pace in these games from a midfield perspective. Souček, defensively, you've been brilliant. Everything else hasn't been at the same standard. I'm going to utilise you just to man mark Billing. That's your modus operandi in this game. Just mark him. And then you turn to the likes of Rice and Paqueta saying, I need more of the same from your last game. Rice, I need you to, when you get an opportunity to burst into midfield, you need to do it. The goal you scored was Gerrard-esque, against Ghent. That's the kind of goal we saw Gerrard do for years with Liverpool, the way he burst from midfield. And that's, again, it's got to be drummed into him. That's what you need to do. I need you on the edge of the area consistently when we attack to have a shot. If you want to be this number 8, I need you there. And I don't think we necessarily lay down the challenge or tell players to take those positional risks, because it's always what's coming the other way. But with that in mind, let's wrap up. We've had some massive digressions in this one. We've also had some rants about other things, but I do see this as a game we can win, Sloth. I really do. And I haven't said that very often this year, to be honest. And I wouldn't put it down to form. I just think there are elements within Bournemouth that should give us confidence. They do tend to concede, as we've seen, pretty much a goal a game. They will offer you opportunities. The thing we have to be aware of, they will go for the full 90 minutes. They will not stop. So we have to be up for a challenge at least. But I'm going to go 2-1. I'm actually going to go for a win. So let's hope that don't backfire. But I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. And if we do it, as I've said a number of times, if we get that win, I think we are safe. What about you?
You've actually taken the scoreline that I was going to go for. I was going to go for a 2-1 win, but I don't know. I kind of it does depend what West Ham show up. I think if we carry the confidence from the Ghent game, I think we could get a 3-1 win. But I just kind of, I do have that apprehension that it could be a 1-1 draw or a 0-0 draw or something really rubbish. But I'm going to go 3-1. I'm just going to try and be confident. I'm going to try and be positive. Which
I like that. No, there's nothing wrong with a bit of positivity. Mark's gone even more positive than us. He doesn't even think we're even going to concede. So fair play, Mark. I do see us scoring. I don't necessarily see us not conceding just because of the way Bournemouth are playing at the moment. They're high on confidence. They're technically in better form than us with their 3 wins in their last 5 games. But I do see avenues in which we can get them specifically down their right-hand side. And I think we can put them to the sword if we play not just in 6 minutes like we did against Ghent. If we can play that over a prolonged period, and if we then play in bursts like that in parts of the game, then I think we do have the quality to beat a Bournemouth. That's not being disrespectful to Bournemouth. I just think the simple fact of the matter is we have a world-class player in Declan Rice. We have an incredibly good player in Paqueta. There's not many when you go through that Bournemouth team, if you go man for man, that you would place above West Ham in terms of in a combined 11. You're probably looking at maybe their left side and Kelly maybe over our left side. And then you're maybe looking at Billing getting into our team over Souček. But besides that, I don't think there's much else you could probably do. Maybe Uratara. But again, it's probably quite early. But I think by and large, you would say we have a much stronger team within there. And fair play to Young 4-1 for the Iron Bowen and him to get a brace. It would be fantastic. Finally, a goal from a corner or a Cresswell set piece to give us the points. I'm loving the positivity, guys. Let's hope that is the case. I think our recent upturn in form has led to everyone to be a bit more positive. We do have to be wary. Bournemouth do pose some threats, so we have to be alert. But if we play to the level we saw against Arsenal, then I do think we should have enough to get Bournemouth, but it is going to be a battle over 90 minutes. But yeah, we'll end it there. Guys, thank you for watching. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Please do follow us on Twitter if you don't already. This is our Twitter tag. Please do follow us on Twitter. We do often put as much as we can on there. If you do like this video, please do like. Please do subscribe. Massively helps us. Share as well. All of that stuff. You please do that. That'd be fantastic to help us out. We also just done a competition for the FA Cup, FA Youth Cup final, which was won by Kieran. So Kieran, enjoy yourself, mate. That'll be next week. That'll be on Tuesday. Hopefully the under-18s will then win their 2nd title of the season. Obviously, they're the South Division title holders. Hopefully they'll win the FA Cup. And if they do, let's be honest, last time our team won the Youth FA Cup, we got a couple of decent players out of it. So let's hope that kind of trend follows again. We get a couple of decent players out of it. Let's hope also we go and beat Arsenal in the Youth Cup on Tuesday as well. I'll be there, so I will probably be tweeting as well about the game when we're there. Hopefully we will get that win, and hopefully we get this win this weekend. But again, everyone, thank you for watching. Please do like, please do subscribe, please share. And Sloth, one last thing to do and say, and that is, come on, you
Irons.